Recording. All right, everyone, welcome. This is Lindsay Wood with Experience Tiny Homes, and you are part of the Solarize My Tiny Home Masterclass. Welcome. This is the hour of solar power, you guys, because we got a lot. We got a lot to share and get into. So I'm just going to get right to it. You can absolutely put in the chat questions as you go. But the cool thing from the people that signed up, one of the first steps that I asked for was, what was the number one thing you wanted to learn about? And I made sure to include everybody's questions inside my presentation. But if for some reason I missed out on something, please feel free to leave it in the chat. My goal is to be finishing at least with 5 minutes before. I know we got a lot to talk about, but there we go. And so just put your name in the chat. Also, maybe how you found me, if it was on Facebook or if you're on my list. Awesome. Thank you for being part of the Tiny Home fam. If you're not already on the list, but you signed up for this, then you'll be put on the list because I only communicate about, twice a month now, and I'm super excited. Cool. All right, Cindy. So let's get started and share my screen. I want to share with you, but just in case, if something happens, during the presentation, like, how do I know all this stuff or where do I go next? I will be inviting you at the end to also schedule a 20-minute Tiny Home Solar consult because there's a lot of information. And as you can imagine, a lot of it's individualized. Okay. So that's the first thing first. Okay. So what are we going to cover today? Introduction of myself, who we are, who I am, 4 questions you must ask before you know if solar is right for you. The Solar 101, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff, off-grid versus on-grid. We've got, we've got amps versus volts times volts equals watts. And I'm going to mute everyone. There we go. And if you want to raise your hand, feel free to raise your hand. But I know sometimes sound and such is there. So then we also have the 5 components of a solar system that you must be aware of. We'll look at a load calculation because knowing how much power you need is a key part, crucial ingredients, recipe for your solar system, and wiring. Okay, then we're going to talk about location, location, location. I know that's used heavily in the real estate world. It is just the same in the world of solar, just a little bit different. And we'll talk about 3 myths not explained by websites that you must know before choosing solar. So here we go. I'm Lindsay, and my husband Eric and I went tiny. In fact, today is our 3-year anniversary of visiting the first Tiny Home Festival and selecting our builder there. So very cool day that, we chose to go solar in August of 2017. We were on a plane going to Austin, Texas in October, and in 2017. So we were committed. We knew once we had the light bulb moment, epiphany, we went for it. And this is our tiny home Sierra. She's 33 feet long. She's a 26-foot trailer with a 7-foot gooseneck. That is actually how they say that in the world of tiny. And her name's Sierra. And so she did not come to us this way. She came to us this way. Our builder went bust in the middle of the build. And if you guys are new to me right now, for some of you may have already heard this story, but I'll share it again because it's a powerful one. It's something that happened to us. And I hope it never happens to anyone that's going tiny. But ultimately, we went solar and we chose to go tiny, found the builder at that festival on the 3rd day of our event, and they went bust in the middle of the build. So that was a big ouch. And there's some things that I'll share with you definitely relating to the solar system that we had to fix. There's a lot of things we had to fix. We did not buy a shell. And in this picture, she very much looks like a shell that you would buy, but you would never have a shell with like a quarter of the siding put on. And I'm going to point out this giant, this giant hatch we had to cut down. That was a little crazy. So anyway, we moved on from there, but part of our system, in addition to all the things that we had to fix, was we had to figure out how to install. We bought at the time a humless system. I am not recommending a Helma system. Do not write that number down or that name down. Don't even bother. We found them at the festival. They largely design systems that will go inside closets of homes. I would never recommend anyone ever putting a lithium battery, because that's what's inside these, or any kind of battery inside a closet, inside a home. Okay, so let's just start there. But we took that unit. It was like crazy hundreds of pounds. And my husband, I call it the leaning tower of power. Like my husband did some nutty stuff to get it up underneath our gooseneck. But we couldn't stop there. We actually had to weatherize this. And if you notice, this little system right here is really how it ended up looking before we hit the road. But it was quite a journey, and we couldn't have done it without a solar contractor, not an electrician, a solar contractor, a C10 solar contractor. This is our dear friend, Chris. Thank goodness, Chris, we were in Ukiah, California, Mendocino County, home to the cannabis world. You know, it's where cannabis was the birthplace of cannabis. Someone could contest that, but it's definitely one of the birthplaces. And Chris had been designing and living in an off-grid systems for years, because the cannabis industry, you could say, is largely responsible for supporting the solar on off-grid system. I'm actually going to increase this size a little bit. Does that help you guys? Is that a little better? Thumbs up. Okay, good. So if you notice, this is like a whole system they had to get the panels up. And when you're thinking about, like, we mounted our panels on the roof, an integrated system. And I'll talk about integrated and separated later. But you'll notice that he had to really keep himself safe. So he was mounted to the roof in his get up right there. So I had to make sure to take a picture of all that. And I am just so grateful that he saved us, because it ended up looking like this beautiful solar panel system. We drove this tiny home 6,000 miles around the country. Now imagine 6,000 miles on wheels. You're basically under hurricane conditions and earthquake conditions at the same time. And these panels survive for us. They are still pumping out energy, and it's only because of Chris. Had nothing to do with the previous builder, because we'll go over that in a little bit. Those are the things we'll talk about, things to avoid. But it really kind of comes down to these 4 questions. You must ask yourself before you know if solar is right for you. How much solar do you need? And if you don't know how to answer that, then obviously people can help you, people like myself. Where will you purchase your solar system? Do you DIY it? Do you hire a solar contractor? Do you hire an electrician? Or do you buy it off Amazon? There was a question someone had about Goal Zero and Jackaroo, and I got to say no on that, you guys. Yes, I am a competitor of theirs. Like, I am in collaboration with Soul Solutions. But there's a reason why. We actually did a full analysis of our SolMan product, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, versus a product from Goal Zero, and there were a lot of overstatements. And I can get deeper into that. That's part of the 20-minute conversation if you're really hooked on that. But they're going to pull you in with a lower price. And I'm a big fan of you pay for what you get. Okay. My brother bought a little system, to run your cell phone, and it was cheap, and it was $40. Well, sure enough, halfway, through the year, it conked out, like you couldn't use it. So $40 many times over, or really a system like that's around $150. My whole system right now, see if I can flip this around and show you guys. I don't know if that's going to come in. Nope, it's not going to come in. I'll have to hold it up. I'm running on a lithium battery that's more of like a little mini tote, and that is a good quality system. But a lot of these devices are made by companies that aren't really caring about how long the thing's going to last. That's one thing if you're paying $150 to under $1,000. But if you get into the $10,000 to $20,000, and that's probably the area you need to be thinking about in terms of a budget, that is really something that's going to be built with quality, and it's going to be built to last. Okay. Then the third question, super important, as I just showed you my buddy Chris, who will install your system? So it's kind of where will you purchase and who will install? Sometimes those people are the same. That's why, and I would highly recommend solar contractor, and they're not all the same. Off-grid and on-grid, we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the biggest one, how much are you budgeting for a system? As I just mentioned, if you're just talking smaller, I want to run a mini fridge and some LED lights, and my tiny home's like 100 square feet, and that's all you're running, you can probably get away with, in that $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000. And the reason why I say a little bit more is we'll talk a little bit more about hybrid systems. Okay, so those are the questions that you've got to ask yourself. Now we get into the solar 101, on-grid versus off-grid. So pop quiz, and I'll be looking at the chat. Here we go. I love it. Everyone's like, Steve Alper from Hollywood. Awesome. Cheryl from Northern California. Welcome, Cheryl. Hi there. Okay, so what is the number one component in an off-grid system that differentiates it from an on-grid system? There's a lot of components, okay? What is the number one component? Who's going to answer first? Big question. I'm going to take a drink of water. Inverter. Yes, that is a huge one. And it is super huge, but there's one even above that. And actually, you couldn't have one without the other. So, Steve, you definitely get it. But actually, I take it back. If you were to run all direct current in your tiny home, you probably don't need an inverter. So what is it you definitely need to make sure that you can run when the sun's down? It's all about capacity. Battery. All right, Steve, you got them both. Cool. So yeah, inverter is going to convert that direct current, right? The sun's, like my little sun there in the corner, sun's beaming down on those panels. Thank you to the panel creators and the battery creators and the inverter people. Thank you to all people that have ever figured out how to build all these systems and make them work and integrate. But when we needed to go off grid, we needed to invert power, because oftentimes our appliances, our tea kettles, our toaster ovens, our, you name it, our, I shouldn't say cell phone because there is a direct current you can plug into. Those all are alternating current. And so then do you go and buy all these direct current appliances? Some people do. For really, truly off-grid homes, direct current is very efficient. However, you could also pay that much more in all the appliances being direct current. So we get back to alternating current, and you're going to include a inverter in that. Okay, but here's the reason why I asked that question. When you think about on-grid, here's the picture to the left. Think about your neighborhoods, suburbia, your bigger homes. Those all having panels on there are most likely grid intertie. And I saw my buddy, oh my God, I'm blanking. See where you are. Where'd he go? Mark, he popped on for a moment. Maybe he popped off. Very much a solar guy. His name is Solar Guy. And the grid intertie went on roofs all over the place because you didn't have to put in the battery and the inverter and the charge controller. You just put the panels on the roof and connected it. And, Sunrun and Solar City and, whether you like them or not, or all these other companies, they largely pushed all that with financing. But here's the problem and the rub, especially for all my dear friends in Northern California and places all over the country that had solar. When the grid went down, guess what happened to your solar system? It didn't power your home. I mean, you couldn't turn on your lights unless you had a master switch and batteries and inverter and so on and so forth. So here's this picture to the right, this adorable little tiny home. The panels aren't such a great picture. They're right here on this corner I'm using with my cursor. And then all this, I love this is why I love this picture, is there's like a rainwater catchment. See that big, this is like true off-grid. If you want to really be off-grid and you want to like take care of your water as well as your power, this is definitely quite an image. So this is really the difference. And largely when we think about, I'm just going to call a solar contractor, but if you were to call them and go like, hey, I want my tiny home and I want batteries and inverters and it's a tiny home, they're used to putting in big system, multiple suburbs, you name it. So you really got to find the off-grid specialists, which is exactly where I've been in the past. I can say back to 2009, but significantly for the last year. And this next slide, I'm sorry to do it, but I have to. Law of text, Solar 101, amps plus volts equals watts. Think of amps as like how much volume is coming through the circuit or wire. Volts is like the pressure, similar to the PSI of water. Watts is how much power is being consumed. Then we get into like watt hours. How much power, that meant to be how much power over time. Okay, and then we get into the kilowatt hour, and that's largely how residential electricity is being looked at or being charged. All right, so for example, a single 1,000 watt appliance running for 1 hour will generate that kilowatt hour. Okay, I love it. People still joining. Welcome, people still joining. Or 100 watt bulb for 10 hours is a 1 kilowatt hour of energy. All right. Hopefully that didn't like, I don't know, we've all probably have heard amps plus volts equals watts, but kind of where to put our head into it. Okay. So the 5 major components to an off-grid solar system. Some of the reasons why I want to share all this with you, because we want to have a starting place from where to communicate. But basically, just like Steve shared, we're going to have the batteries. These are those yellow ones, or sorry, greenish ones down below. Those are called the Dragonfly. Those are lithium. You can either go with lead acid or lithium. Okay. If you go with lithium, which are the newer battery technology, you can discharge it all the way down to 10%. That's why our cell phones are all with lithium batteries. That's how they're able to even, be able to be utilized, that we started having better battery technology along with silicone and all that other stuff. With a lead acid, let's say this is your charge, you can only go down to about 50%. If you go any lower, you're going to have battery, you're going to like really shorten the life of your battery. It's possible to go lower, but you're going to shorten the lifespan of your battery. So lithium was able to not only bring a lot more power within a smaller space, lighter weight, but it can discharge much more. Also very expensive in the realm of batteries. So this is, and then the inverter, okay? This is the inverter right here. It's an Outback, good quality products, you guys. Anything less than good quality, that system can fail. And that means you're not gonna be running your system until you replace that piece of equipment. There's also the charge controller. And that charge controller definitely regulates all that's going on. We've got the solar DC coming in, the alternating current, and then we've got the user interface. This is the little box there. Oftentimes, you'll be able to access it on your cell phone. They'll have a Bluetooth connected to this user interface. And then, of course, the solar panels. So the question I love the most, and it's just because people are new to it, how many solar panels do I need? The answer is, it depends, right? It depends on a lot, but it's not just the solar panels. And the cool thing is nowadays, you can not only get solar panels in more of the rigid, like we're used to on all the homes you've seen. They come in thin film, silicone, monosilicone, polysilicone, and flexible. And in fact, let's see, I've got my flexible panel right here. Can you guys see that? Flexible panel. Am I still on? Oh, you can't see it. Okay, we're gonna do a little number here. You got to see the flex panel. Okay, let's see if I can do it. Here we go. Da-da-da. There we go. There's the solar panel that is running this solar masterclass, because I just couldn't have a conversation about solar and not run on solar, please. Okay, so back to, those are the 5 major components to an off-grid solar system. All right, does anyone have any questions about that so far? Are we running? We're pretty good. All right, 5:21, checking time. So next one, load calculation. This is one of the biggest things that we're getting into. We've just kind of given you that really one-on-one. Now we're getting into like what everyone needs and what any one of us at Soul Solutions answers the questions to is how big does your solar system need to be really depends on what you're using. So for example, here's a picture inside of our tiny home. This shows you largely most of the electrical devices. The big one, the refrigerator. Oops, excuse me. The refrigerator right there. Okay, we've got a full size fridge. We've got a toaster oven. We decided to not do the oven. We've got a kettle, the fan up above, LED lights, computers, cell phones. What we've made sure to do, and I know there's some questions about this, is separate the hot water and the cooking from electric, from solar, because that's consuming. That's big time consuming. And right now, I'm going to go show you guys, we're going to take a little trip within my computer, and we're going to show you a load calc. All right. So here's a load calc for myself and my husband for the Solar Sierra. We have 6 solar panels, 230 watts per panel. That's 1,380 watts per hour, 1.3 kilowatt hour. Okay. And this is all of our systems. Now I highlighted in green, you know, we got a refrigerator, give or take, it's running 8 hours. It's not always on running the power. It's going to fluctuate. Obviously, it depends if it's a colder day than if it's a warmer day. That'll be on more. So, you know, what this system really needs is maybe a seasonal, but we'll talk about that. And so that is like green, we have to have it, a must have cold food, right? In fact, that's a big issue with all these power shutdowns in Northern California for how many days you get a shutdown. And actually it was last year that was a big deal because there was millions of people without power for like 4 days. That's enough to obviously, you know, crush all your food. So that's expensive. But as we go down here, you'll see these are the watts. Really important, notice this, 120 volts. I had one client that was interested. She had already purchased her mini split and it was a 240 volt. And I told her to take it back because every one of her other systems were going to be 120 on, you know, 240 volt. That's why your clothes can dry so quick. But if you do the combo washer dryer, they're not going to dry as quick. That is why. There's a voltage power. There's remember that like sizing that we talked about, volts. So blenders, they can be really obviously a lot of usage, but for not very long, right? You know, a few minutes. Food processors, a lot of heavy usage. Our water pump is used you know, half hour of a day, definitely. So you can see that starts adding up some wattage. Vented hood, must have. If you're going to use propane, make sure you have a vented hood. Portable heater, we did have one of those. Then I made sure to kind of highlight those in yellow. You may need either a grid or backup generator. It really depends. If you're in Colorado, like my friend Pam is, all of a sudden it is cold, and I'll get to the bottom of this. What's going to happen when it's cloudy? It's going to happen when rainy, cloudy, sunny, you know, snowy, you name it. So these are the big loads. And as we go down, we got a fan, then we get into cell phones. These are, you know, little stuff, clocks, timers, hair dryers, you know, amplifiers, lights, you know, some tools. We have a little biomat because I love my biomat. So a total of 12,000 watts per day divided by, and this is what this little box is right here, divided by the watts per hour that we're able to get in, we need about 8.7 hours of sun. Now, winter time, summer, when we drove and traveled around the country, we had no issues because we were traveling in summer. It was super easy to do what we're doing because we had plenty of sun. However, when we got back to California and needed to land our tiny home in winter, we had some issues. So let's just take away for a second the heater. Now we're going to add in a wood stove or the mini split. Okay. Now we're down to like 5 hours a day. All right. So you can just see how just changing those little things. And so each of you are going to have your own needs. Maybe some of you don't have a hairdryer. Maybe some of you have musical equipment. Maybe some of you have medical device that you must have. No fail, cannot deal without. So these are all things that have to go into this load calc. All right. And from there, this is where we can really become intelligent about what you need for yours. Okay. So going back. So that gives you a little bit idea. How was it? Yeah. How about a TV? Well, we didn't have a TV because we had our computers and we run Netflix and all that stuff. But if you have a TV, then this would go on your load calc. So everyone, just like tiny homes, highly customizable. So are off-grid solar systems. Okay. Of course, you're going to maybe have the same things that I have on this list, but this just gives you an idea. And in 1 hour, we don't have enough time. I'm loving all the 22 people that are here. I had 40, almost, yeah, 50, 49 people sign up. This is an awesome ratio, by the way. That almost half the people are actually here, and the other half, I don't know, they're busy, they're folding their laundry, they forgot. What's the load for a TV? Actually, that is a great question. Hey, Mark, can you toss that in? I just realized what one of my, it's going to take me too long to go out and get it. But I know where it is, and to go, maybe at the end, I can come back to that. But we can go into that. All right. So wiring, this is where we get into the things about things to avoid. So see this little yellow thing that's popping out of our roof next to our beautiful solar system? That was the leftover F up from our builder. Our builder decided to put Romex. And if anyone knows about wiring and electricity, in through our walls is excuse me, let me mute everyone. Does anyone have a question that's coming in without? Nope, we're just hearing people. Okay, no problem. So that wiring right there is a Romex line that's popping out like it's going to connect our solar system. No, I can like just see my friend Mark, he's the solar guy, just shaking his head like bad juju. Let me tell you why. We'll just float back between these two. So I want to make this point because all y'all that are going to get tiny homes built by yourself, by your friend, by a builder, you think everything should be right, right? They said they're going to sell me solar. So I'm expecting them to sell me solar. I got that. I added that in the last minute. This is what we did. This little is a Romex. This is not connected to our solar system right here. That's probably going to some light switch. That's what Romex is for. Okay. But not for solar, not running direct current from our solar panels, which is a bunch of power to our inverter that can then send it back out as alternating current to all our fun little devices that we use and love and take for granted. You do not put Romex through a wood structure. That is exactly where fires happen. Because that insulative quality of a Romex is not strong enough. That's, you know, when you run lighting and you run electrical current to run 120 volt, those are simple things that Romex can handle. Inside this 3/4 inch conduit, metal conduit, is like 6 solar cables that are going to each one of those panels that are actually coming out. Let me zip back up here. Let me show you guys this picture. There it is. That is the image of that metal cable. You can see all those cables coming out of that wire. Okay. So I want to be very emphatic here because you guys, we had no idea. We had no idea. And if that builder had sold us and done our home and finished everything and closed up the walls, we would never have known until our home burned down. Could we have gotten insurance for it? Yes, because we have insurance. And I can help people with insurance as well because I'm affiliated with Mac Insurance. But that is not how I want my tiny home experience to be, especially if I'm living in it. That is just, so I hope I made my point. And Mark just explained, just got a TV for COVID, 55-inch LED, 70 watts, okay? Then you take that 70 watts times how many hours you're going to use it. That's when we get into load calc, okay? So that is super important as we go forward to look at all the devices and to make sure that your wiring is safe. And if you're the person asking your builder about how your system's being wired, especially if you're integrated, we're going to talk about that in a moment, because this is the question, the biggest question: where is the best location for my solar panels? This is what people are not telling you guys. How many of you, by a show in the chat, say that you before you came here, you thought, if you actually thought the only place to have the solar panels was on the roof, say yes in the chat. Yes, I just want to know. It's a poll. You're not bad. You're not wrong for thinking this way. All right, we got Kristen. Thank you, Amy. Yes, that's the only place I want it. All right, Steve. Okay. Pam, wrong. Yes. Laylo. Okay. No. All right, good. Sherry, yes. Ernesto. You guys, you have absolute choice as to where you can put your panels. The reason why I highlighted this Solarize My Tiny Home class with panels on the ground like this one, which is called the Tack House. I do want to give credit. This is not a picture of my tiny home. Is because these are on the ground. And this comes back to location, location, location. Do you want it integrated or do you want it, oops, there we go, keep it separated? Okay, integrated, separated. Now, just to pause here for a moment, I do want to give a shout out. This custom tiny home was built by my buddy Byron in Colorado by Simplicity. Give a big shout out. I'm hoping, I don't know, Pam, maybe you can tell me, is the fire out now that the snow has fallen in Estes Park? I'm really praying because my buddy Byron was evacuated.
Well, they're knocked down, but they're not out. They're anticipating they'd be down for a couple, 3 days, but not enough moisture to maintain them. They'll spark back up.
Okay. All right. But at least I'm hoping that my friend Byron has been able to get back to his property.
Yeah.
Because where he lives in Lyons, Colorado, he had to evacuate. And, you know, he actually, what's really awesome, because we stayed there for 2 weeks with our tiny home, gorgeous, most epic, like think the most epic place in Colorado, that's where he lives. And there was a stream running through it. And he opened his gates to the fire department because the other stream running down the mountain was not flowing as much. And his was running, you know, full force. So they were able to take a lot of water out of there. Anyway, a little side note. I mean, obviously we're dealing with affordable housing crisis, you know, COVID pandemic and natural disasters. I don't know. Can you guys share in the chat, like, what's the number one of those? If it's one of those or all three of them, let me know as to why you want to go tiny. What was the motivating factor? Was it affordability? Because it's some kind of financial, you're going to save money, you're going to be able to own your own home? Was it because of COVID? Was it because of natural disasters, or was it all three? So I'd love to hear from that, because it's, you know, I look at that as a Venn diagram, and I would love to have this image, but, you know, think about tiny homes right there in the center. They're able to help everybody. I love it. So Sherry, to save money, housing in Colorado is expensive. Yes, for sure. Here in California, it's redonky donk. Freedom to move around. Awesome. I love it. Layla, you know, we traveled for 6,000 miles. I will say we are a unicorn. We are not your typical people that traveled, and we can definitely get on a call, Laylo, and talk a little bit more about travel. But that might be the reason why those of you that want to integrate, and I love it. Cougar, you want to have control over your power system at all time. Awesome. But let me go in a little bit, little bit direction on keep it separated. Here's our buddy there. He's got thumbs up. He's super excited. He's got his separated system. There is a case for separated. Let me show you some pictures. If you're tucked away back in the hill and with the trees around you, your solar is not going to be shining on your roof. Okay, there's the SolMan. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And, you know, here we are in a field, bright sun, there's no tree around. You know, yes, could these panels be on the roof? Absolutely. If these people inside this home had, you know, a big fridge, and, you know, what if you run out of space on your roof to actually have your solar system? Or let's just say, hypothesis here, that you pull up after 6,000 miles of driving. Yes, this is our tiny home. And you want to park where the sun is going to hit your door. But all of a sudden, your shed roof is angled opposite from the sun. Ooh, dang. Now what? I just paid for my whole system to be integrated into my roof. That is not coming down easily. Or that's not coming down without a bunch of money paying to Chris again to take it down. So we opted to charge up by the grid, you know, to run our home by the grid while our solar panels sat there idle for 6 months. And we got our son on the door. So those are just the give and take that you've got to make. All right. And I hope I mentioned that. So integrated is one direction. You will need, a cabinet recommended. So see this bump out in the back? That's where this cabinet is, where all those systems were built. But there is another alternative, and it's like the most amazing solution, and I can't wait to share that with you. But here we are, and the question is really, it's all about what's going to work best for you. Okay, is it being integrated because you want to travel and you don't want to take down panels and put them out? However, I would say about 99% of the people are most likely to be staying put somewhere where they're going to land their tiny home and maybe move it in a number of years. Okay. How many of you are, moving around all the time? Like travel, just say travel in the chat, or, land. Like you're going to land it. Doesn't mean it can never move, but you're going to land it for a longer period of time. We were in the every like few days, if not every week, we were moving somewhere for 6 months. Once we landed back in California in this spot, we landed for 6 months. The only reason why we moved is because we didn't own the land and she put it back on the market, so on and so forth. So I do want to make the case for hybrid. Okay. A lot of people are like, I love solar, it's super environmental and it's friendly and all that. And I totally agree. However, you get into the weeds, the solar panels do take energy to make, and so do the batteries and all that good stuff. There is no 100% green. If it was, it'd be made from mud. Okay. And I know there's a TED talk about batteries being made from some interesting material. But for right now, what you may benefit from is having a little generator. It's not about running. So generators, you either run, if you have a generator system to run your home, it's either on or it's off, unless you have batteries, right? And with solar, obviously solar can actually run and power, batteries. You can just have a solar system running directly to your systems, but when the sun's not there, then you're not running your system. So that's why inverters, batteries, controllers get into the systems. But you may have the opportunity to run the hybrid, unless you can pull things like your heating of your water and your heating of your air from your solar system. Even if you had the biggest budget, no budget, budget was not an issue. You could have, I don't know, a megawatt system. But if it's raining, you're only going to get so much power. Okay. And I know not everyone's going to have like a megawatt system that is huge. So, all right. I love that. The generator that runs on propane, that, yep, obviously would be convenient. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many options, you guys. It really comes down. People are like, what about wind power? Absolutely. What about a stove inside my home for the really cold days? Absolutely. It really comes down to, are you building your tiny home for this one location? You're going to only be there. Like people laughed at us when we were in Colorado. They're like, you aren't from Colorado, are you? Because our pitch of our roof was not very steep. And they know, Coloradans, you know that your snow level, it happens. And we're like, no, we're fair weather people. We're in California. We don't run into snow often. Now, climate change may change that. But for now, that's not happening. So let's get into, once upon a time, there was a tiny home. It needed power, not connected to the grid. And that's where SolMan came in. So my buddy Chaz, who's pictured here right in the middle, I have known him for a long time. My buddy Mark and I here on this call also have known him for a very long time. This is circa 2009, you guys. So not only was I involved in tiny homes, because I'm the one filming these 4 people here, and this lovely couple, I forgot their name, they built the home and they traveled around and did education. Chaz is the owner of Soul Solutions. He has been an off-grid power and lighting specialists. And I want to emphasize once again, the off-grid, the batteries, the inverter, not your grid intertie. And those can be very intermixed. A lot of people can call him and say, hey, I love solar on my home. When they get into the conversation, I'm like, yeah, grid intertie, that's not his jam. So I've really learned about solar by pushing a panel on a cart, just like we showed you here with the little SolMan. That's how it started. But the reality, for most of the power that you need, you know, this SolMan solar panel on a cart can pretty much run like, you know, a computer and a cell phone and maybe an hour or so of a mini fridge. But it's surely not going to run everything like our tiny home could. So the reality is, I realize everyone's like, make it easy for me. I just, you know, this whole integrated, separated panels on the roof, panels on the ground. You know, can I run my van, bus, trailer, or on V? Yes, you can. If you bring it to us in Santa Rosa, we can install that for you. However, if you're like, I'm not coming anywhere near Santa Rosa, but I want solar and I don't want to deal with it, you know, off, you know, what do you call it, integrated, because that will be a cost of integrating. There has installation involved. Just to give you an idea, we paid $10,000 for our homeless, and we paid $7,000 for our solar contractor to install it. So if that's a budget that you're like, ouch, that's a lot more than I was expecting, then introducing the SolMan 3000. This has been refined over a decade. Like I said, cute little solar, you know, SolMan solar panel on the, you know, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 solar panels. Now, a decade later, those are 170 watt solar panels times 4. Actually, can someone do that math? 170 times 4. And it can be more. Those are just what's sitting there right now. The more solar panels you get, the more you can charge your batteries, the quicker, right? If that was English, that was correct. And this starts at $9,999. The solar panels are not included in that starting price. So, because it really depends. Are you going to do rigid panels? Are you going to do flexible panels? Are you going to travel with them? Maybe you can still travel and not integrate. And there's some way that, let's go back to my house right here. Let's say on the back here, we were able to design, because the SolMan is only like, I think a couple feet wide, maybe 2.5 at the most. What if we were to build a little platform just like we did for the compressor here? Here, let me get this like bigger. Okay, what if we built out a little platform, and, you know, Cougar's on the line here. He's my you know, contractor. You know, weld that thing in, make it solid, because you're obviously going to put a lot of weight. Lithium batteries, even the 4 that are in the SolMan 3000, they do carry weight. It's like 250 pounds. So we've got to make sure that with, you know, vibration, you know, it's in the back of the tiny, maybe you need to put it in the front. It all depends on design. But if we're able to put this on the back here and run this around to our 30 amp plug, we basically are traveling with our onboard generator, just like you would this little dude, or, you know, whether or not that's the size for you, you know, just like you would have, you know, RVs, build them inside compartments. You know, with tiny homes, you got to build that into the design. But this is an option for the price that's out there, you guys, and for the ability to just get it delivered. It's one of the best options out there. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with, this is the place to schedule for a 20-minute tiny home consult. I am super shocked that we are now 15 minutes before the end of the hour. And so please open it up to any questions that I may not have asked, or sorry, answered, or things that I didn't cover. I really did take into account all of your questions and scan through them. But if for some reason I did not cover that, let me know. Oh, but let me actually quickly show you while I'm here. Far too much on my screen. So like, here we go. So this is the place to go to experiencetinyhomes.org. And if you want to just schedule a call, I also do design for people. Pam is one of my clients, and we're also talking to her about going solar with her tiny home, and Cougar as well. And then you can click here for your 20-minute solar call. Okay, the world of designing your tiny home, and if you need a consultant for actually doing, you know, tiny home design, we can definitely do that. But if you are looking for solar, then click there and schedule that call, because that is where we are really going to be able to get into the weeds with your specifics. All right, so there we go. Does anyone have any questions? And if you want to like show your video or not, love to welcome you into the group. Any questions? So let's see. Do you have any recording and links to the previous class? I did not. This is my first Solarize tiny home class. So this will actually be showing up on my tiny home support squad if you go in there. But yeah, this is a great. Let me actually give you guys the link. I didn't realize that I have a link here. Oops, everyone. Okay, so there's the link. Versus you having to go out to the website. Sorry about that. I can just put it easily in the chat. So yeah, any questions about solar? And do you all feel like you're clear? Are you interested in just, for your own personal tiny home, but you're still needing to get your tiny home? That's a very common thing. Do you have to do a lot of maintenance? No, we do not. That is why you pay for what you get. If for some reason you paid for something that was not built quality, then those individual components would have to get replaced because something would break down. The solar panels, those are fine. They've been well tested for decades now. But if you were to get some crappy inverter that, was touted as great, then that's a challenge. So, but in terms of maintenance, other than cleaning your solar panels, yes, the recent fires and all the ash, if you really want the most efficient panels, you're going to want to keep them clean, from dust and dirt. Sometimes you might have to recycle your system, just like anything, our electronics need to be turned off once in a while. But we really had no problems. That was because Chris, he took the hummus thing and added all this extra stuff to make it work. I would not, that's why I don't recommend it. You have to do a lot of other work to it, and it would only be someone that knows what they're talking about. Does anyone know right now, like, would you be interested in the SolMan, or would you be like installing your own system integrated? I'm just curious after I gave that whole sharing, integrated or keeping it separated. And maybe the idea of a SolMan on the back with a bunch of panels on the ground. That would be when I do this again, when we land our tiny home, we are in like total travel mode and all that. Is there a term for minimum amount of sunlight that is useful for solar panels? That's a good question. I'm so glad. I think I still have my buddy, solar guy here. Mark, any answer there? I'm in sales and marketing, you guys. I have learned a lot, and I'm a really good solar 101, but man, when it gets into the dirty details, we are handing you over to Chaz and Traverse, who basically, Traverse just got an RVIA. This is the RV Industry Association certification for installing in mobile systems. So if it's not a solar contractor, having someone like Traverse that's an RVIA certified, that's your person. What kind of batteries in SolMan? Yeah, it's the Dragonfly suite, or gosh, Battleborn. Very well respected. Battleborn, Victron, those are the components that are in the system. You'll be able to see what's going on with your system for your cell phone. Absolutely. But yeah, the Battleborn, which also is Dragonfly, it's the same company, but one is more commercial that they sell to, and one is kind of more, I would say, end user. But we have definitely had a lot of people coming in and buying their own components and doing their own systems. So if you guys just need to buy components from someone and you need good quality components, then you can absolutely, the Victron and the Battleborn and the Outback inverters and charge controllers, all of that, we can definitely, help you with. And that you can, do the solar call for sure. And we can definitely guide you in that. So I'll put that link in again. Where could one find a good load calculator? Okay, so what I'm going to do is follow up with everyone with a load calc. I'm working on, as you could see, I had that in a Google Doc, but I was filling it out for my own, and different than, Google Forms. It's great. They don't have a Google worksheet that anyone could get and then just fill in. So I'm trying to figure it out. Let's start with a call, you guys. 20-minute call. It can definitely help in directions you're going, whether you want components or whether you want to get your load calc. I would be happy to just run a load calc with you and share with you the Google Doc, and we'll do that with you. Absolutely. because I have been looking online, and you can definitely go to a lot of on-grid solar, like Grid Intertie websites, but no, I just don't have one right now. So I got to find one. But when I do, I will send that out to all y'all. What I may do is a Google form, at least initially, but part of that Calendly that you're going to connect to, there's like 10 questions. So we can really kind of get to it. And if you want to spend the 20 minutes doing your load calc, let's do it. Yeah. Anyone else? I can't believe I'm finishing early. What a shock. Solar, super simple, right? Any other things you want me to go back to and cover that we kind of blaze through? Or is everyone like, oh my gosh, I just drank from the fire hose? I got a lot of volts today. Oh no, is that amps? Gosh, I'm still learning from that world. How about yeah, I think I asked, like, at this point, now that you know what you want to, that you've, now that I've taught what I've, oh my God. Now that I've shared what I've shared, would integrating or separating, which is your direction for your own tiny home? Oh, good. I got a great job, Lindsay. I mean, you know, the solar guy was here. He did the solar decathlon with Chaz at Soul Solutions. Like, no pressure. I would love to hear it. You know, this is what my dear, what's her name? Rachel Maddow. She's like, if anything I've shared today was incorrect, or, you know, misstated, please let me know. Can you have both integrated and separated? I guess what you can do, yes, actually you can integrate. Let me go back, share screen. Thank you. Because it's all visual always helps, right? Okay, let's go to, let's say you've got this tiny home. Think about it. This is both integrated and separated. The panels are on the ground. That's probably the biggest one, you guys. If the panels are on the ground, then you've got some separation from your home. You probably don't want to go more than 25 feet, if I haven't said that before. Oh, cool. Excel chart. Yeah, the load calc. So that is both built, you know, all the system is built inside and the panels are on the ground. Hopefully that's clear for you. However, in this scenario, we do not yet have a picture of, imagine a SolMan and then the tiny home is next to you. Now you could not leave this unit out in the weather because you need a little box. So imagine you build just tiny little, you know, like a doghouse for your SolMan that matches your tiny home, or you mount it on the tiny home. This can come in and out of a truck. So, you know, there's so much flexibility. I just didn't want anyone to think that was the solar panels on the roof and the integrated into your home were the only way to go about it. And for the price, you guys, you're going to absolutely, if you're going to do integrated, you're going to need to find someone to do it right. And I will tell you this, a lot of builders are still asking me about this stuff. Okay. I should say me, my team, Chaz and Traverse, because they're electricians. They don't have C10 solar contractors. I don't know. Mark, can you unmute yourself and like back me up here? It is not just some easy thing that anyone can do. If you can't unmute yourself because it's too loud, I totally get it. And I will dive back into my Google Doc. Here we go. Okay, so can you explain again your Excel chart? So this is where we start all of it. You know, let's just say this slate is blank. And we are going to start putting in all of your items that you have. Now, of course, there's a list here, and I will have at that point my, here, actually, maybe I can find it really quick since I have some time. Excuse the deep dive into our Google Doc world. There's nothing that you can see. There will be no naked pictures, I promise. Well, sorry. Let's see. So we're going to look for load typical. There we go. I found it right away. Love that. So this is something I can send you guys because, yeah, I just got to figure out a sheet because obviously, you know, you can actually look on the back of your own device, like literally on here. I can look at this right now. This has Sorry. This has information, too tiny for me to see. Can you guys see that? This has information, I'm gonna stop sharing, on your devices, like the back of your fridge, you name it. If you don't want to actually go, and look behind all those things and tip them over and dig around, but that is a good experience. You can actually use this wattage chart. So how do I share this wattage chart? That is a great question. That was next, right? I'm telepathic. So, you know what I'll do? Since you all are here, I will send this by email. This is great. Is this helpful? Would this be helpful to send this, typical usage? All right, thumbs up. Awesome. But if I can really get a wattage thing, cool. I'm sure Chaz's latest SolMan is great, but does anyone have any input on the Blue Eddy solar generator with integrated pure 1 inverter, MPPT charge controller, and USB regulated 12 volt, 110 plugs used? Yeah, pure sign. All that's good. Those are good signs that it's a good product. I don't know about the Blue Eddy. I would do a deep dive, but thank you for telling me that, because we are going to be doing product comparisons. It's time. This is such a new world, you guys, with so much going on with the natural disasters. This whole industry of off-grid awareness, of truly owning your own power, which is the hashtag that we always like to use at Soul Solutions, has become way more important, right? To really have something. You can have something small, like literally, let me show you guys this. Take my virtual background, turn it off, because I got to show you what we've been doing. So there's the solar panel that we had on our roof. We are hanging out here in San Diego when we were at the beach all day in Oceanside, where we're going to be tomorrow. And this is my little light system, as you can see, but let me turn this off so it's not blasting you. So I don't know if you guys can see it. There's no solar coming in, but we powered all day, and we've been using 1 bar. My phone has been charging here. I'll charge my computer right now, and you'll see there's numbers coming up. It's like 19, 20, 25, and that's because I've already charged to 100%. So it's really not needing to charge a lot, unless I was at like 20% on my computer, and it will start showing around 48, 50. That is like real deal. In fact, one of the things I could recommend for everyone to go buy is a kilowatt meter. They're like on places, that thing that reminds me of the Amazon. And I'm not a big fan of only going there, you guys. I'm all about shopping local, but I realize, just knowing what you consume, and you would plug this into the outlet and then you plug your device into it. And that's how you can really get to know your system. But back to, showing that, let's see, did I cover that? Load calc, yeah. So super, yeah, kilowatt meter. Thank you, Cougar. These are all, and then you get down to here, and then what Chaz and Traverse and myself can do internally is based on everything that you're going to need. This is where you start getting into like some reality check, you guys. Let me tell you a quick little story. We're at 6 o'clock. There we were in Arlington, Texas, and we were in our tiny home, not this tiny home. This is our cab over camper. So this is much smaller demand. Our fridge is running on propane, but we were in our tiny home, and it was hot. It was hot outside, but the sun was shining. So, AC and cooling actually works really well with solar, because usually when it's hot out is when the sun's out. So they're very well paired. When it's really cold, like in the morning and the sun's not out, that's when heating your home is really, challenging if the sun's not out yet. And so that is why we often talk about propane systems, wood stoves, you name it, for those that really need to heat and want to be toasty. And you just don't have the power. Or if you don't want to run it, if you want to run it on grid, that's cool. But there we were, sitting there, everything was going great, fridge is running, and the power goes out, because it was like 2 hours after the sun went down, right? And there we were running our mini split. So we had to wait until 10 in the morning for it to come back on. So a little bit of story, you know, or let's just take, for example, we ran our whole house on a 20 amp circuit during that time of that winter. And we couldn't run the toaster, the pump, and our little, you know, space heater, you know, all at the same time because it would blow because there's too much amps on the circuit. Right. And we probably did that 2 or 3 times until we figured out, like, nope, turn off the heater. Okay, now you can run the toaster and the kettle because they're like big charges right away, a lot of amperage. You just got to know that. And so there is a reality of living with solar that is awesome and great. And, you know, I highly recommend it, or I wouldn't be here talking about it. It just that it does take some knowledge about it. So with that, I just want to thank you all for being here. I'm Lindsay. You can find me at Experience Tiny Homes or Lindsay, Lindsay, at experiencetinyhomes.org. And thank you, Sherry. If you guys want to unmute yourself and say thank you, I love that. That way I know I'm not talking to like nothing, no one. I know I am.
Thank you, Lindsay. You did a great job.
Thank you, Cougar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
I learned some stuff. That was good. It's worth my time.
And if anyone wants to stay on, you guys, I do not have to, you know, bust off, but I do want to end this, you know, portion. So I'm going to like hit the record button later. So experiencetinyhomes.org for you to own your own power and solarize your tiny home. Bye, everyone.
See you, everybody.